All right. All right, good evening, everybody. It's so wonderful to see all of you here. I'm Sumant Bhan. I'm the head of school at Stanley, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to Stan Talk 7 tonight. Every year, this evening serves as a powerful reminder to everyone who has been here of the strength and connection of the Stanley community. And for those of you who are new to our community or who are prospective parents, consider this a great window into the extended family that we're all a part of here. Speaking of family, it's always a gift to have our two past heads of school, Tim Barrier and Carolyn Hambidge, visionary leaders who we're all here because of. Let's give them a round of applause. It's also so wonderful to see so many alumni families, Stan Talk speakers, alumni here in our 50th anniversary year. Being the parent of a first grader, and on the early end of my journey at Stanley, I can't wait to hear from our three unique alumni speakers, Mark, Rachel, and Charlie, who have followed their passions and brought their Stanley experience with them to their professional and personal lives. And then to be able to recognize the legendary Lenita Jones as our 2023 Spirit of Stanley recipient makes for a must-see lineup tonight. So, at the end, I do hope that all of you will join us in Hambidge Commons with a reception, with beverages, snacks, and good company, and to share the common themes that bind us as a Stanley community. But now, I'd love to get things going, but let me bring up Bruce Dabosky, our MC for the evening. Bruce, where are you? Now, Bruce, I can't let you get started here without letting this community have the opportunity to thank and celebrate you in what will be your final year organizing Stan Talks. It has been 7 years since you launched the first version of this ultimate mission moment and community event. Over the years, you've reconnected over 20 alumni speakers with our present community in inspiring fashion. But what few know is that you spend countless hours of free time with each alumni speaker, getting to know them personally and helping them tell their story. Bruce, I get goosebumps every time I hear you passionately speak about the impact of the Stanley experience on our children. You've been the ultimate friend to Stanley over 25 years as a parent, board member, counsel to leadership. You've been a veritable voice of wisdom and advice throughout your long tenure. Your values align so deeply with our school, and your work outside of Stanley as a passionate civil servant and agent for social change would make for one heck of a Stan Talk itself, if I don't mind saying. Bruce, I've got many sleepless nights ahead of me, I'll be honest, trying to figure out who will fill your big shoes for future Stan Talks. I mean, Ryan Reynolds and Neil Patrick Harris already indicated they were too intimidated by your charm and good looks to follow in your footsteps. So instead of trying to figure it out, I'm just gonna soak up this event and your presence, and then steal your phone and block the next decade of Februarys in your Google Calendar so that you can be sure to enjoy future Stan Talks as an audience member. So prior to getting this event going, please accept this heartfelt gift on behalf of our community. Stanley community, let's give Bruce a warmest of appreciation and applause for his efforts.
Larry, don't take no speech.
No? It's part of the joke.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sumant. I have to lower it. So I can't see anybody, but I do want to know for how many people tonight is this your first Stan Talks? Raise your hand. Oh no, clap. Better idea. Clap. First Stan Talks. That's great. So welcome to Stan Talks 7. And I'd like to give you a little history about how we got to this exciting and interesting and fun night. As some of you may have heard me say, I have been a Stanley dad since 1992. Now, let's put that into perspective, right? Just so that we can all be clear. Bill Clinton was elected president that year. Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You was #1 on the charts. Michael Jordan led the Chicago Bulls to their NBA championship for the second year in a row. And sadly and poignantly, the LA riots took place after the acquittal of the police officers involved in the beating of Rodney King, and we have not gotten close to resolving that terrible issue in our society. 1992. I did the math today and I said, wow, 31 years as a Stanley dad. I did take a break in there, I want you to know. I have 4 sons. Aaron, who's 36 in March, left here. I graduated at 8th grade in 02. Sam, 33 in 04. David, 31 in 06. And Ben, who's 14, is in 8th grade and looking forward to his trip to England in just a few months. So, here's how Stan Talk started. I watched my sons grow up, the big ones, and I saw them and all of their friends, dozens of the people that they knew here at Stanley, go out into the world and be remarkable contributors to the world in which we live. Dozens of young people have come through this institution and gone on to make a difference in the world. And so we had to figure out, how do we tell the story of what it is about Stanley that makes a difference in the students that we spend up to 9 years educating? So Stan Talks is an opportunity to invite alums of this school back to tell their stories. And over the years, we've had surgeons and actors and psychologists and musicians and Hollywood music writers and farmers and athletes and teachers and businessmen and women, bankers and architects come through and tell their stories and help us answer these 3 questions. What happens when Stanley alums leave this place and go on to the rest of their journeys? Did Stanley's secret sauce that we all hold so dear, started by Carolyn, continued by Tim and Sumant as leaders of this school, did the secret sauce actually make a difference in the lives of our children? And if so, what difference did Stanley make in these children as they became young adults and adults in the world? For your reference, all of the prior Stan Talkers, 1 through 18, are on the website. And it's actually worth it to watch all of these stories as they're told and unfold. But tonight, we are really lucky because we have 3 more, numbers 19, 20, and 21, here to tell their story and the way in which they remember their years here at Stanley. So it's my privilege to have worked with all of these young people. I have loved every minute, and tonight is no exception. We have 3 great speakers. So let's get started. Mark Tappy is our first speaker. He was a member of Stanley's first 8th grade graduating class in 1998. He then went on to East High School and graduated from CU Boulder. And as he'll tell you more in his presentation, he currently works as the Senior Talent Manager at Pinnacle Assurance, and he will share a lot about that journey tonight. In 2020, Mark was honored as one of the Denver Business Journal's 40 Under 40 award recipients for his work in education and workforce development. I'm so glad to have gotten to know you, Mark, and I look forward to hearing your presentation tonight. Let's give him a warm welcome.
So before I start, I do want to say the last time I was on this stage was a performance of Macbeth, and David Murray was associated with that performance. There will be a lot less stage blood in this particular experience. I don't know about my other speakers, but at least for this portion. But yeah, I still remember the question. It came from my mom. Well, what do you think? I was getting in the car right in front of the red brick school building over on 13th in Quebec. And you see, it was 1995, and I was trying to figure out what for me was one of the biggest decisions of my life at that time. Where was I going to go to middle school? You see, my local Park Hill, I went to Park Hill Elementary, and the local middle schools in Park Hill left a little bit to be desired. One of them has actually now been rechristened as a parking lot, and our network through Montview Preschool and Ann Breckenridge's cabin camp and local sports teams had made us aware of a 6th grade extension that was going to be happening over on the Lowry Air Force Base that some British school was putting together. And so, not knowing much about private school and getting an opportunity to visit, I took advantage. Now, nearly 30 years later, I can still remember that day clearly. I remember walking into the classroom and the incredibly welcoming teachers who went by their first names, and there was incredible resources and toys and learning opportunities at every turn. We had art from floor to ceilings, and we were actually encouraged to get our hands dirty when the lesson started. I also looked around, and seeing the other students in the classroom, I noticed that many of them also sported very well manicured bowl cuts, just like mine. And so I was like, I think I might be in the right place here. But it wasn't until one point of the day called choice time when I actually had the opportunity to have the agency in my education to choose how I wanted to spend that portion of the day. In composite, it made the decision easy. Mom, that was probably the funnest day of school I've ever had. Please sign me up. And just like that, I was enrolled in the very first middle school here on the on the Lowry Air Force Base campus, where this was our classroom. The library was our first classroom back there in 6th grade. It was so interesting being in school on an abandoned Air Force base. It left opportunities for exploration and adventure almost every day. Having a bike was almost as much as one of our school supplies as a paper and pencil back then, and oftentimes we made the outdoors our classroom. I can remember probably one of my favorite afternoons of school in my entire life, where we were studying kind of statistics in our math class and ecosystems and science, and we decided to bike over to the wetlands area just on the south side of Lowry, and we were charged with finding one subsection of the ecosystem to gather data on and collect it, to analyze it, and then present it back to our peers. Then kind of wading through all the weeds and fescue, I remember seeing just so much life springing forward, and my partner and I decided, let's study the grasshoppers out there. That seems pretty interesting. And we spent the whole afternoon catching grasshoppers by hand and measuring them and identifying them about, did they have blue legs or red legs? And there's kind of a camouflage variety too. And I just remember how incredible it was to take the education I was getting in my classes and be able to apply it to the real world. It felt like I was unlocking a deeper understanding of the world around me. And that felt pretty powerful. And it wasn't just in the classroom or through our academics that we were learning. You see, 6th grade, we didn't have enough students to field teams. But by 7th grade, we could actually start to play sports here, as long as anyone who was semi-athletic played all seasons of all sports. And so we started with soccer and then went to basketball. And then I don't know how this happened, but we got this guy who was kind of like an amalgam between Sean Connery and Einstein for a basketball coach, and he was just here for a long time. It's like my favorite joke about my dad. I had to put it in. But anyway, and then there was this sport called lacrosse. And now I had known nothing about lacrosse in my entire life, and poor John Gottesfeld and Doug Fulton had to teach us from the ground up how to play this sport to try and compete with the other schools who had been playing it for years. And I think many of us, myself included, thought the equipment might be better positioned for catching wetland specimens than actually playing a sport. But after a while, we got pretty decent. And as we got decent, we said, we need a mascot. We can't just be Stanley BPS. So in 8th grade, one of our class projects was to actually dream up what the mascot might be for this school. So it was so fun walking by the t-shirts on the way in here to still see the Bulldogs as our mascot here at Stanley. And I can remember using dial-up internet at the time, trying to look at cool logos that colleges were using, and our artistically inclined classmate, Robert Rohn, ultimately drafted what was kind of the first logo for the school all the way back in 1998. So that set me up. After Stanley, I went on to East High School and the University of Southern California and CU Boulder, where surprisingly, and shout out to John and Doug, I saw both of you out there. I ended up playing lacrosse at all of those schools. I was captain on all of my teams. I played in 2 state championships in high school and 1 college club national championship in college. At CU, I ended up double majoring in ecology and evolutionary biology, so big shout out to my pals over at the wetlands area, as well as sociology, based on my interest in the way that society functions, or as Bruce referenced earlier, sometimes fails to. But that led me to a career where I've really launched into what I do now, and that's been in the nonprofit youth workforce development space. And I started at Goodwill Industries of Denver in their Youth Career Development Services department, where your donations of t-shirts and those cargo jorts that just didn't quite work out and your old rollerblades helped me and my incredibly talented team serve students all across the Denver metro area and Aurora with classroom curriculum focused on college preparation and workforce preparation and soft skills and life skills and social and emotional wellness. We brought mentors into the classroom to provide positive role models and supports in much the same way that my coaches and my teachers here at Stanley provided me. In 2017, I was offered a really incredible opportunity, actually right across the parking lot here at Pinnacle Assurance, where our old soccer and lacrosse fields used to be, to join a company to solve a really interesting issue that they were facing. And that's that they're a workers' compensation insurance company. And believe it or not, the insurance industry is getting a little bit old. And so they were finding that 30% of their workforce were going to be entering a retirement window in the next 5 years. Yikes, right? And so when they looked at kind of the talent marketplace in Colorado, they saw around the same time there was an inversion where there started to be more jobs in the ecosystem than there were skilled workers to be able to fill them. Typically, when you think about where talent comes from in an economy, it's from the education system. And what we were seeing in Colorado at the time is that for every 100 high school freshmen, 80 were graduating from high school on time, 40 or 43 were going to college that next semester, about 3/4 were staying for their second year, and only about 25 were actually graduating within 150% of allotted time, meaning 4 years for an associate's degree or 6 years for a bachelor's. That left 75 of those students out of this marketplace for the high-need jobs that businesses like Pinnacle were looking for. So I was charged with partnering with local nonprofit intermediaries, our public school system, state departments, to work with an incredibly talented team to launch a first of its kind in Colorado, technology and business-focused European-style apprenticeship program for young people. And essentially, the way that this worked is we hire juniors and seniors in high school. They go to school half-time, they come to Pinnacle half-time, where they're paid for every hour they're on site. They get hands-on work experience. They're getting credentials and college courses that map to the careers that they're interested, all with the intention that at the end of the day, they'll have opportunities to secure employment in high-demand fields. What we've seen as a result of this, now doing it for 6 years, we've hired 65 high school students into the program, 100% of them have graduated high school on time. 100% have earned industry credentials. They've all been paid for every hour they're on site. They've all added meaningful bandwidth support to the business. And we've seen that 2/3 of them have gone on to be either hired by Pinnacle or go into college, or sometimes both, because they can leverage our tuition reimbursement model to not pay for college once they have these jobs. Because of the success of the program, we've been recognized by the likes of Harvard Business School, the White House Office of Management and Budget. We have a documentary coming out. PBS followed us last year. We've had business leaders like Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan Chase, policymakers come and visit us, and we've been able to consult nationally with other companies that are looking at implementing these types of solutions in their communities and within their workforces. It's been incredible to get this type of recognition, but I think what's most powerful about it is what this has meant for the young people that this has served. You see, so many of the students who are a part of this program never dreamt about being a software developer or a UX designer or an underwriting analyst, but they've now secured this type of employment, which has allowed them the economic foundation to do things like buy houses and start families of their own. And that's pretty powerful. When I think about my career in helping launch and shape some of this programming, I think back to this space and the educators who poured the time and energy into turning this campus into what it is today. It's now something that's been around for decades and served thousands of young people. It's something that's incredibly inspiring to me, and it reminds me of the power of educators and adults and what they can do when they put their minds to getting opportunities to young people and making education relevant. It reminds me that mentors can turn even kind of awkward, bowl-cutted scientists or kids into relatively decent practitioners of disciplines they had no idea about. And it's a legacy that I'm incredibly proud to be a part of, and I hope tonight you all are proud to know that the legacy lives on across the parking lot here in Lowry and in every other place where Bulldog alum put their education into practice. Thank you so much.
The secret sauce. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark. That was just great. Just great. Our next speaker is Rachel Waugh. And Rachel graduated from Stanley in 2008. She then went on to high school at Kent, Denver. She then got her undergraduate degree at Wesleyan University and her master's in food studies. Pay attention to that. From Chatham University. She is the founder and executive director of the first of its kind Museum of Food and Culture, which you're going to hear about right here in Denver. Rachel, it's been great to get to know you, to work with you, and I can't wait to hear your presentation tonight. Please give her a warm welcome.
I am an entrepreneur. I'm a creative, I'm a scientist, I make, I tell stories, and I never stop learning. It was my turn to lead choice time. I was 5, and my mom had just spent the previous weekend teaching my sister and me how to make butter from scratch. My mom loves Little House on the Prairie books and knew that it would be a really good way for us to connect to the source material. We bought heavy whipping cream, poured it into mason jars, added a pinch of salt, and then shook it for what felt like well over an hour. In reality, it was probably about 10 minutes, but I watched the cream transform before my eyes. In the end, we had a light, creamy homemade butter, which we quickly spread over thick slices of homemade bread. I was in heaven. So when my teacher, Allison Neckers, asked me to lead choice time, I knew what I wanted. I wanted my mom to come to class and teach my fellow students how to make butter from scratch. It was a perfect choice time activity for K-12 students. The day came, and I remember being so excited. I was literally vibrating with anticipation. and then I got a call. Now, my mom still feels bad about this, so sorry, Mom. But she couldn't come. A work emergency had come up, and she wasn't able to make it. I was devastated. But wait, I knew how to do this. I had made dreams come true with cream just a few days before. So, like any superfood motivated kid, I decided that I would teach the class. So what if I didn't know all the steps or the history that my mom had shared? The butter would be good. And it was. 10 proud K-12 students made butter that day. So I tell you this story because I've always really liked food. As a kid, I've been pretty quiet and shy, but when I could talk about, near, or over food, I felt safe, I felt secure, and I felt confident. At Stanley and at home, I was never short of opportunities to learn about the world through my senses. Whether it was doing taste tests in ArtGluck's math class, to practice data collection and analysis, or my family's now signature pop culture Passover Seder, you'd be surprised how similar Harry Potter and Moses are. I always loved to connect food to whatever I was doing. And it wasn't just eating that I enjoyed. I loved the making and growing and shopping processes too. But my favorite time of the day was always mealtimes. Mealtimes were the times that we'd gather together, talk about our days, what we've learned, and what we thought about it. Whether with others or just our family, meals were when we would gather together, share stories, and learn together. As a kid, I wore a lot of different hats at Stanley. Actor on this very stage, mathematician, scientist, author, artist. But I knew that food was always something I was interested in, and I always came back to food in everything. As a child, I knew that the best way to kind of continue my love and obsession with food was to become a chef. So I got started. I made pop-up restaurants for my parents' anniversaries using whatever we had on hand at the time. I set up lemonade stands with very elaborate menus. And when it came time to raise money for the 8th grade trip to England, I set up a vegetarian catering business. That's on the right. In high school, I started to love learning about culture, though. Culture was the way that I could learn about the world and why we behave the way that we do. My worldview was just my worldview. And culture set the stage for so much of what we take for granted, from our daily assumptions to the way that we move in the world. This was something that was fascinating to me. And as I was learning about this, I also started learning about different social justice topics, about the nuances of racism, the atrocities of animal agriculture, and the subtleties of sexism. So I changed. I decided I didn't want to be a chef anymore. I knew I wanted to be an anthropologist. When I got to college, I started taking all these anthropology and sociology classes. Food got sidelined as an extracurricular, but clearly still a love. And I took any class if it mentioned food, and I honestly tried to make pretty much every paper I possibly could about food. Seriously. I wrote a paper about hipster food trends, and I also wrote one about the ethics of Jurassic Park, where the dinosaurs are eating the humans. I love food. And as I was doing this, I realized that I kept talking to people about food, about culture, about all of these things that I was learning and processing aloud. And at that point, I started changing. Maybe I wanted to be a teacher instead. All that is, until one day, when I was working on what is perhaps the most liberal arts-sounding project of all time. I was producing and catering for a dystopian play about the food justice system that my friend had written. Her theory was that if the food system keeps on the way that it's going, with the unfair labor and the harmful growing practices, humans would have to resort to cannibalism. Yeah, it was pretty dystopian. But not any cannibalism. Cannibalism along racial and class lines. And it was while we were working on this play, we got caught up in one of those late night conversations where you decide that you can change the world, and the only real barrier is that you have to pick a starting point. Why wasn't there somewhere you could learn about food and every question that you had about food? Somewhere like a food museum. That was my exact train of thought. We ended up putting on the play, and we put all of our questions about food to the side and just addressed a couple. But I never forgot that idea, the idea of a food museum. I loved this idea. It like just stuck in my brain and was saying, hey, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. But it was just that, it was an idea. I wasn't really sure how to make it happen. Until a few weeks later, in the way of fortuitous circumstances, my sister told me about a friend of a friend who got their graduate degree in food studies. Wait, a master's in food? That's legal? Please sign me up. So that fall, I ended up moving to a farm. Me, a city girl. Granted, it was a farm/graduate school campus, but it was still a bit of a shock. And there I ate, slept, breathed, and worked food. After 2 years, I graduated with a bookcase full of stories and research, a memory packed with experiences, and most important to me, a plan in the form of my thesis for how I wanted to get started with my food museum. Next on the list, move back to Denver, easy. Get a nonprofit, also pretty easy. Founding board of directors, I know some people. And then, what should we do for our first program? Let's do a pop-up. 2 months later, COVID-19 hit the United States. Yeah, needless to say, pop-up didn't happen. We actually ended up lucking out, and we were able to leverage our time, our brain power, and just sheer enthusiasm to local nonprofits who are struggling in this new world of virtual programming. This is one of the second programs that we did. So one of the questions that I get asked whenever I tell people I'm the founder of a food museum is, cool, what's a food museum? And it's a good question because we don't know museums as places that have food or that study food. Museums, in fact, have very strict signs saying, keep out. And places with food and drink, like restaurants, are fun. They're not educational. But because of what I learned at Stanley and from my awesome parents, I know that fun and education aren't mutually exclusive. So, after about a year of working on this, I remember talking to my mentor, and I was growing frustrated because the museum wasn't growing as much as I wanted it to grow. And she said something to me that apparently my family members had been saying for years, but I just hadn't been ready to listen to it yet. She said, Rachel, the museum is only able to grow as much as you are able to devote time, energy, and effort to it. So, with a large helping of fear and quite a bit of glee, in 2021, I quit my full-time job and I went all in. It's been almost 6 years now, and we've been quite busy trying to figure out how to create a community-based food museum. The museum invites you to have fun while you learn. We invite you to connect food to everything in your life and explore the world through the lens of food. The answer to the question, why a food museum? What is a food museum? It's because a food museum can help you better understand your history, your culture, each other, and ourselves. So we've been experimenting. Here's our mission. Our mission is to inspire curiosity, creativity, and community with food, history, and culture. And we do this throughout our different programs. So we've been experimenting with art workshops that connect people to their personal stories. We've worked with CSU students and in the undergraduate hospitality program to show them why learning about culture can change the way that they interact with the food in their industries. They've already looked at street foods from around the world, the history of grain, and this semester they're tackling desserts. And recently, we launched a member community. Our member community is basically a virtual museum where members get to tell us what they're interested in learning about. And we create programming, content, workshops, and events to reflect that. We just wrapped up our first month, actually, which was January, and we celebrated why every culture has a dumpling. This theme is going to be Black food entrepreneurs, innovators, and leaders. We are working towards a physical space, a place where you can wander from the politics and pleasures of chocolate to an exhibit about diners, delivery apps, and drive-thrus, and the role of transportation in why we eat. Our future is filled with possibilities, and we invite people to help us make this first community-based museum. So my big why. My big why is because we're all makers, we're all tasters, we're all learners and teachers, scientists and storytellers, just like Stanley told us we could be. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. You add new meaning to the term secret sauce. I just made that up. Last, but by no means least, is Charlie Fine, a 2004 Stanley graduate who went on to East High School, Kenyon College, and ultimately got his law degree from the University of Denver. Charlie currently works as a senior counsel at the Denver Public Schools. And unlike most of the Stan talkers, I've known Charlie since he was wee in here. And I've watched him grow up, and he's one of those friends of my adult sons who inspires me to ask the question, what difference does Stanley make in the lives of others? Charlie is a perfect example of that, and I'm honored to introduce my friend, Charlie Fine.
We were in the old red brick school building on Quebec Street. A generous parent had just purchased new appliances and donated several large cardboard boxes, leaving them in the sunbeamed hallway. It was choice time in Lynn Forstadt's K1-2 class, and I was a second grader. There I am in both pictures, second from the right. I wandered from the classroom with a group of kids to find these beacons of possibility, a collection of markers, paints, scissors, recyclables, other discarded treasures. These were no mere art supplies, no. Within moments, the plaster walls of that hallway crumbled down, leaving exposed the steel beams of an airline hangar. And what just moments ago were just cardboard boxes were now the lightweight frame of a future jetliner. I recall one kid carving out the windows of a passenger seat, another fashioning emergency parachutes from old grocery bags. First graders experimented with staplers. And I created a propeller fueled by the power of a single AA battery and attached with Scotch tape to one of the boxes. There was no doubt that in just a few weeks' time, this machine would taxi down the hallway to the downstairs ramp and launch into genuine flight. That was the magic of choice time. It gave us superpowers, adult powers, to make adult choices, to build, direct, construct anything. It was the power of self-determination. I enjoyed 6 more years at Stanley, reading my way through Stu Sava's 345 classroom library and enduring years of immersive David Murray horror stories on middle school camping trips. There I am in 8th grade, far left, before continuing on to East High School with many of my Stanley classmates. So there I was at East, 10 years after choice time in Lynn's class, an 18-year-old senior preparing to speak at my high school graduation. There I am with my family on graduation day. I was valedictorian, and it was a daunting task to reflect on my education in front of a captive audience. At that point in my life, I had learned just enough to know that my understanding of the world was limited by my inexperience. There were so many different ways of knowing and seeing the world, from French existentialism to the ancient Greeks. But these were not just ideas to be studied in a classroom. No, these were options, real ways of living one's life. So as an angsty teenager preparing for independence, that's what I spoke about at graduation. I wrote, "Our choices are our own to make, and the more we understand about the world, the more we can own our own choices." I imagined a new sort of adult power, still the power of self-determination, but this time to understand the world and chart my own course. My parents played a role in this, of course, but Stanley also played a role. Choice time was fertile ground for learning the courage of independence. From there, I continued on to college at Kenyon College in the rural pastures of Ohio. There's a friendly neighboring cow. And before the end of college, the power of choice would prove influential. At another transition point, this time as a senior in college, I had applied, was accepted, planned to enroll in law school. I just had to choose where. There I am, middle back with some college friends around that time. But up until that point, I had been pulled in competing directions. Should I pursue a career in education, which I valued so much, or law? Well, conventional wisdom would have had me follow through with the law school plan, but on a late spring morning, it was the morning of an infamous Kenyan party called Shock Your Mom, I called my parents and told them that I would not be going to law school, that instead I would be looking for jobs in teaching. It was one of the best choices I've ever made. I taught for 3 years middle school and high school science at a public charter school in Colorado Springs, where I met my wife, my loving partner, the mother of my daughter and future son. And here we are. And I did end up going to law school eventually, this time, however, with a new ambition to combine my passion for education with my interest in law. Today, I work as in-house counsel in the General Counsel's Office for Denver Public Schools, representing the district in legal matters pertaining to students, including special education, student privacy, civil rights, among others. I work with a mission-driven team whom I love, and it's not without controversy, of course, but every day I get to support my district clients in advancing the cause of equitable access to education for all students, regardless of income, race, ability, and other historical barriers to access. Working in public education has highlighted for me several truths about choice and self-determination. The first being that far from being just a power, choice and self-determination are also a privilege. I am so privileged to have parents who sent me to a school like Stanley that honors and cultivates choice. But I've also seen how things like housing insecurity, transportation challenges, addiction, trauma, poverty in all its forms can place a burden on blossoming independence. Second, working in special education has highlighted for me the marvelous diversity of human differences, the marvelous beauty of human differences, but also the unique needs that many children have. Not all kids learn the skill of self-determination in the same way. And third, I've seen the influence that a student's parents and their family can have on their choices and life trajectory. Here's a picture of my own parents, including my father, who passed away just this year. Far more than I knew to admit as a high school senior speaking at graduation, one's life choices are never fully independent. In fact, it can hardly be just a coincidence that my own father, in his early 20s, applied, was accepted, and ultimately permanently deferred his own law school enrollment to open a bicycle shop here in Denver. Some of you might recognize the original Turin bicycles and miss it. Beyond all that, as I've settled into parenthood and adulthood, I've learned something more basic. Adult choices aren't always about Socrates or Sophocles. Real adult choices are less noble. What's for dinner? Will I read that book? Go for a run. Call an old friend. These choices are mundane. They aren't building airplanes or becoming Aristotle. They wouldn't shock my mom. But in their own way, these small choices are still the essence of self-determination. They're the actual building blocks of an adult life. Unlike the big choices that I imagined as a child or a teenager, no single one of these choices would change my life, but taken together, they are life. Will I wake up early? Hug the baby? Coffee or tea? We don't all have the same choices, but we all have some. And more than anything, I've found that these small adult choices present actual opportunities for conscious decision-making and joy that comes with freedom. No less than the joy and freedom in Lynn's class during choice time. I'm grateful to Stanley for cultivating that seed. Thank you.
All right. Wow. What an amazing collection of stories. Thank you, Mark, Rachel, and Charlie, for sharing your journeys and reflections with us tonight, and continuing to make us proud even after you've left the bricks and mortar at Stanley. There was so much that resonated with my experience at Stanley as a parent so far and as the head of school, despite the time that's passed since you all walked on campus. And I'm so inspired thinking about the countless staff and teachers who helped play a role in these three journeys and thousands of other journeys we didn't hear tonight. So how about we give our teachers and staff a round of applause as well. Mark, Rachel, and Charlie, that was amazing. I am excited to keep you all in touch with Stanley, and I'm so grateful for your time tonight. So let's give our speakers one more round of applause, too. All right, so to close tonight, we are excited to honor our tradition of recognizing a Spirit of Stanley Award winner. The Spirit of Stanley Award has been awarded since 2017 to honor a member of the Stanley community who embodies the values of Stanley and made an indelible impact in the community and on our kids. Every year we look to the community and to our alumni and ask ideas of who might represent that very spirit of Stanley. Tonight's recipient joins a distinguished group of past award winners. This includes the late Betsy Lewis, Lynn Forstott, David Murray, Donna Millay, Melissa Knott, and Allison Neckers, many of whom are here tonight. Let's give them a round of applause. And now, we can't give her enough round of applause. Let's just Lenny, can you just stand up so we can all, I know it's dark here, but can we just give the first of many rounds of applause for you? Because you are that amazing. So for those that don't know, Lenita began at Stanley nearly 3.5 decades ago as an intern in K-12 with Joanna Hambidge. She was pregnant at the time she joined, and in true Stanley fashion, she did a unit on babies, taking advantage of the natural curiosity of kids, and even brought the class with her to see her ultrasound being done at Rose Hospital. It's unbelievable. Yes. She has always regularly embraced opportunities to transfer learning outside the classroom, including a classroom visit to the field, where the town center now sits, to follow ants in the paths they took between anthills as part of a unit of study. Stanley students, yes, there was not a Starbucks there at one point, believe it or not. We did survive. Over the years, Lenita quickly established herself as a beloved K-12 master teacher, shaping the lives of so many students and striking a perfect balance of flexibility and fun. Direct, honest, and loving, she has immense empathy for children. Lenita loves to find out what is important to each student, and she remembers it. And then she asks them about that favorite thing whenever she sees them, building connections, earning trust. By the way, if you want to ask about Lenita's favorite thing, a Starbucks brownie is a good place to start, I'm told. She has an intuitive ability to meet a child where they are. She knows when to push and when to slow down. Her years of experience give her the ability to see the big picture. She doesn't get bogged down in what a child is capable or not today. She always sees the potential in that child and talks to them and treats them as if they have already reached that potential. This inspires the children to see themselves that way. In Lenita's role as a lead teacher and as reading specialist, thousands of students have benefited from her belief in them and her willingness to work hard to meet their needs during the day, in the mornings, after school, on Zoom, in the summer, and whenever she can to help them gain confidence. But Lenita's legacy at Stanley will always endure, not just because of students and families whose lives she has forever changed. She has trained countless teachers who interned in her classroom, from Allison Neckers to Susanna Murray. She has always made time to support the unique needs of other educators who trained under her, propping them up with words of encouragement, modeling lessons, and a love of children that is core to the Stanley ethos. At a time when the field of teaching is experiencing shortages and great strain, Lenita's contributions as a mentor in our teacher training program feel so important now more than ever. And she's even paid it forward by having 2 children who are working in schools today. I'm so happy that your family's here, Lenita. It's wonderful to have them. Lenita, even before I joined Stanley, your reputation for being on the front lines of diversity, equity, and inclusion work was well known. And it was a huge draw for me personally in coming to Stanley to be able to work with you. You speak passionately about supporting students' neurodiversity and helping them get what they need. You have always spoken up for injustices and rolled up your sleeves in all aspects of school to help create a sense of belonging for all children and students and faculty, staff, and families. You've always embedded powerful lessons around inclusion into your curriculum. You've helped make families of color welcome as a teacher, DEI leader, as well as your time in admissions, and have always served as a trusted confidant. You show up to march down Colfax and parades and always bless our community with your beautiful voice in our Martin Luther King Jr. assemblies. As much as anyone I've met, you live our statement of inclusion, and you have paved the way for our school on this front. So congratulations, Lenita, on your most deserving recognition for the Spirit of Stanley Award. Your career at Stanley is a reminder to us all of the impact that one person can have when they wholeheartedly and consistently show up in service of a community day after day for so many years. Thank you. It is so wonderful to look out and see so many here who have been impacted by Lenita's work and are here to celebrate this award, including a Stanley alum who has been personally impacted by you, Jenna Greenwood. Jenna is a member of the class of 2005, graduated from East High School, has a BA from CU Boulder and a master's in higher ed from Portland State. She's living in East Denver and works at CU Boulder in the College of Engineering, managing their scholarships and college affordability program. She's part owner of Quint's Coffee House in Denver. Please join me in welcoming Jenna.
Hi there. My name's Jenna. I'm going to say some words. Oh, this is really tall. About one of my favorite humans. Okay. Lenita has been a significant figure to me for a majority of my life, which is something that I feel lucky to be able to say. Growing up, I was cared for and raised by a community of strong, brilliant, and hardworking, resilient Black women. Lenita was and still is one of those women. For me, Lenita has been a teacher, another parent, a guide, and a safe place as I've learned to navigate the world. During my time at Stanley, Lenita was my K-1-2 teacher. She helped me build a strong educational and social foundation and lovingly referred to me, and still does, as Jen Jen. Inside and outside of the classroom, Lenita's taught me so many lessons, including how to read, which has been really helpful. And the importance of lifelong learning. She has also shown me what it looks like to work hard for the things that you care about in life. One significant learning from Lenita has been about the power of education, and that when you can create a safe and non-judgmental learning environment, students can be more successful. This is something that I strive to create for the students that I serve as an educator. Lenita has also shown me what it looks like to embody and live out kindness and love every single day. And she has shown me how to have tough skin and a quick-witted sense of humor as I learned to hold my own in the very tall male company that I kept while growing up, specifically Randy and David. I and so many students are lucky to experience the bright light that Lenita is. The Spirit of Stanley Award is intended to honor those who engage, challenge, and inspire a love of learning for students. Lenita does that and so much more. It is my honor to present the Spirit of Stanley Award to Lenita Jones. I think this is your award. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it says so.
There you go.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Wow. I kind of don't even know what to say. Thank you to Jenna for her kind words. I had no idea. Thank you to Samant for all that information he gathered that I didn't even remember. Just thank you to all of you, and I am so grateful. So grateful. You know, it's interesting to watch Rachel up there and Charlie, and I'm sorry I didn't know the other guy. I remember seeing him, but he was beyond K-1-2 when he came. But I remember Rachel being right next door, right here in the hallway, and Charlie in Lynn's room. So it's just so wonderful to see you guys as mature, wonderful human beings. I really feel appreciated, and I really feel honored. I just have a few things that I want to say. Being a part of Stanley British Primary School has been a gift to me. I hadn't stayed on a job longer than 3 years until I came to Stanley. I just have to thank Carolyn because she gave me the opportunity to come and be here. My husband had a colleague and that said they need teachers over at Stanley British Primary School where my kid goes, and they especially need teachers of color. So when I walked in the door to see exactly what they needed at Stanley, I walked in the office, and the first people I saw were Ida Daniel, who was a beautiful African-American woman, and Barbara Gwynn, another beautiful African-American woman. And I said, oh, they need teachers of color over here, huh? But I went ahead and applied and was able to do the internship program and learn about the philosophy that Stanley has, the unique philosophy. So I had the opportunity to work with Joanna Hambidge, and I had the opportunity to work with Betsy and truly understand the philosophy and what made Stanley such a special place. Now, a lot of people were wearing Birkenstocks, and I just have to tell you that that was one thing that I was not going to do. I have since bought a pair, but they are not like those. So I'm grateful and really look at that as a gift that Carolyn gave me the opportunity to come and work here. And so that was truly a gift to me. And then working at the Red Schoolhouse and being right next to Lynn for so many years. And it was just wonderful because we had each other and learned from each other and shared kids with each other. And that was truly a gift to me. Another gift was having my children to be able to come here. And at first, my husband would say, well, what do you think? Should we go there? And it was so different. I'm like, well, let's see. But we did, and it was a wonderful gift to both me and my husband for my children to go here, because not only was I there with them, but they're two totally different human beings, and Stanley worked very well for both of them, and I'm just very happy. That was a gift to me. Another gift that a lot of teachers get a chance to feel, but I don't know if parents truly understand. It's so wonderful to have the 3 grades in one class. I really love the multi-age classroom here, and you really get a chance to know the children, and they really get a chance to know you. And so by the 3rd year, if you're able to have them for 3 years, it really is like family, and they're starting to talk back, and you're ready. You're like, it's time for you to move on. But that truly is a gift to a teacher. And working with the other teachers here, it's a gift as well, because you learn so much from them. We learn from each other. Teachers are real good at stealing ideas. And just the community that we have here. It's, it's not a perfect place. I don't think there's a perfect place, but it's a place that is always looking at themselves and trying to be better. We know better, so we're going to do better. My oldest son, Randy, had Laura Barr as a teacher, and she's, some of you know her, and she has her own organization. One of the things that she wanted to do was for the children to get to know about the other students, and she wanted to do it through food. And Rachel, you'd be happy about that. And it was great because it was a way for the children to understand each other on a level that they could understand at their level. And it made me see that she was really trying to make a difference so the children could understand each other, that we have so many similarities, yet we have differences. And I thought, here's somebody that truly cares about my child, that really wants to look at my child uniquely, instead of trying to put him in the, with everyone else. So that, I felt like, was a true gift. When I saw that, I thought, I'm enjoying being at Stanley. You know, it starts being a blur after a while, but after being in the classroom for 16 years, I needed a break. And, but I couldn't afford to take a sabbatical, although I did. But it ended up being a working sabbatical, but it was great because, again, Carolyn allowed me the opportunity. Our music teacher she was retiring, and I remember Betsy saying to me, "Lanita, you could do this job with one hand tied behind your back." Because music was like my life, like everybody else had sports, I had music. So I took the position of doing K12 music. And so it was truly a great change for me, and it was fun. And along with that, Ida called me and asked would I work in admissions with her, and so I said yes, and got a chance to see another part of Stanley's world. So I was doing music, and then I was doing on the admissions team, and then the year after that, I started training with the Wilson Language Program because we needed more support here with kids that had issues with reading. And so I started doing that, and it's ended up, I've been doing that longer than I was in the classroom. So it's been another gift to me. All those things I was able to do here, I look at as a gift to me. You know, hindsight is 20/20, and I'm just lucky to be here long enough to know that 2020, we don't always know what life is going to bring to us, but it all works out. Not always the way you think it's going to happen, but it worked for me very well. So it's all truly been a gift. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all the parents through the years that have supported me. Thank you to Tim, who supported me doing a lot of diversity work and really wanting to move more diversity within our community forward. And then thank you to Samant, who, when he first came and I said, I need to talk to you, and we've been doing a lot of work, and you know, I know you're new here, but you need to understand that we want to continue. And of course, that was no brainer for him. So we continue doing the wonderful work that we've been trying to do. So overall, Stanley has been a gift to me, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. And I feel very appreciated and very honored. Thank you so much.
It just doesn't get any better than her. Let's give her a round. Yeah, in our 50th year, you are such a perfect person to honor, embodying our values. So thank you, Lanita, for sharing those words about the impact of Stanley. We are as lucky to have been part of your journey. as you are. So thank you. I want to do a few more thank yous here. I just wanted to mention also, it's our 50th anniversary, and these kinds of events are awesome, and I've been so missing them in my first couple of years, and being able to gather together as a community. In our 50th year, we are having an incredible gala, 50th anniversary gala on May 5th at Wings Over the Rockies. And it's so nice seeing so many alumni families here reconnect and come back here under the tent. And I hope you all will put that date on your calendar and join us for that night, because we're going to celebrate teacher training, which is, who has done this more than Lenita? She has trained so many staff. And so I'm excited to kind of continue to celebrate her legacy here at that time. So, a few other thank yous. Thank you to Bruce again for an amazing event and all the work that you see from our impressive speakers. Thank you, Bruce. Our Office of Community Engagement, Laura Becker, Sam Boggs, Jessica Wiles, in helping organize this event, and Lori Romer, who worked with so many of the alumni and has such deep connections to this community. Thank you to all of you for helping make this event possible, and to our 8th graders who are doing the spotlight and helping get ready for their musical Addams Family in a couple weeks. I hope some of you will join there for that as well. It's so nice to have you be here, and nice to see some of our students here tonight. And one day, who knows, maybe you'll be up here and giving your talks about the impact of Stanley on your journeys. So thank you, everybody, for a fabulous night. Thank you for being part of today's event. And I hope you all will join us for the reception in Hambidge Commons to just enjoy the celebrities here that are sticking around and just connect with one another. And so I do know sometimes people always ask about, can we put the chairs? I've talked to Javier, who is just an amazing human being and staff, and he has insisted that we do not touch the chairs. So please don't do that. Just go out, enjoy one another's company, and thank you to Michael for videoing today, and we look forward to seeing you all at the reception. So, good night.